Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We've got a huge turnout to today's Woking Borough Council Health Overview Scrutiny Committee meeting. For those of you who are guests or new to this committee, a huge welcome to everyone around the table, and to the existing councillors, thanks for coming. We have quite some meaty topics tonight, so I do want to try and keep the meeting within the expected time frame of 2 hours. If people have finished their topic, they're free to go. You don't have to listen to me all night, which is a jolly good thing. So I'm going to start the meeting now. So first item, Madeline, is apologies. Do we have any apologies for tonight?
Councillor Rowland, and she's been substituted by Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Do we, in terms of the minutes of the last meeting, has everybody read the minutes? Has anybody got any questions on the minutes? Were there any omissions or errors? Can we have a show of hands for supporting the minutes? Thank you. Carried. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest amongst the councillors? No. Public question time. No public question. Any member question? Okay. So right on to the first topic. The first topic is social care futures. And I believe Greg, Hilary, Yvonne, Jodie and Matt are going to be talking about this topic. If you'd like to kick off. By the way, try and get the microphone fairly close and speak loudly. The audio system, I find, is not very good in this room.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to start, but we have got a whole choreographed presentation for you in a minute. And hopefully, I'm not going to talk too long. We're going to do a presentation. We're going to go through that. It would be really good if you could try and store up your questions for when we've finished. And we hope that this goes a bit differently to normal, in that normally an officer will present a paper and then we'll do some questions. We're here for some different reasons tonight. We're talking about the future of social care in Wokingham and what we want to do with that. And we're looking for committee support, really, to take this wider. We're aiming to go to full council in January with our vision. I suppose I'll just introduce people, but I suppose by way of introduction, all of us have people we know or loved ones who may need support from time to time. Some of us will have those loved ones who need support from the council. We'd all expect that to be timely, good quality, relatively easy to arrange support. And we would hope that it would support our loved ones, to live fulfilled and independent lives. And we have lots of good examples of social care, good social care in Wokingham. But I suppose, sadly, that's not everyone's experience of adult social care. And what we're going to do today is present you maybe a vision for working with people who draw on support of social care to look at how that could be different in the future. We think that's going to be a journey. We want everyone in this room to come on that journey. And we've got Yvonne and Greg, who are residents, who are going to talk to us about their experience and why this is important to them. And then we've got Jodie and Hilary, who work with our little group, who have come up with this vision that we want to talk about today. So I did promise I wasn't going to talk too long at the beginning, so I feel myself going down that rabbit hole. So I'll stop now. We're going to start with the video, and then we'll move through our presentation. Thank you.
We all want to live in the place we call home, with the people we love, in communities where we look out for one another, doing the things that matter to us. But for many, this is not reality today. And without big changes to the way we think about social care, many more of us will face losing control over our lives and contact with the people and things that make our lives worthwhile. It doesn't have to be this way. At its best, social care helps us to find, grow, and weave together the people, places, and resources that we can draw upon to live where we choose, in the way that we want, with meaning, purpose, and a sense of belonging at every age and stage of life. Realised through innovative approaches like circles of support, shared lives, and gig and sports buddies. We need this to be the reality everywhere and for everyone. To do this, our government needs to invest in social care, and our local councils must work with the people they serve, so creative approaches can take root and begin to thrive. Let's start growing the social care future together. For all our futures. Share this video and join our movement for change. We all want to live in the
Well, that sort of worked, didn't it? Okay, apologies for the technical hitches there. But essentially, this is what we wanted to come and talk about today. Social care future vision, why it's important to our residents in the borough, how we've already started doing some of adult social care differently as a part of this vision. And then we have got a charter that we want to talk about, and we want to talk to you about how council and you can help us make that vision a reality. So social care future vision and why it's important to our residents. So we just go to the next slide. So we've been working as a small group with residents that draw on social care support, and we started to come up with this vision. And I suppose we can all read that up there. We all want to live in a place we call home, with people and things that we love, in communities where we look out for one another, doing things that matter to us. Now, that I suppose sounds quite simple, but as I said, it's not always the reality for people who draw on adult social care support. And we've joined a national organisation called Social Care, which has helped us develop this vision, and we're looking really to make that a reality in the borough. You'll see a bit more later, I suppose, in terms of the charter. As I said, it's a national movement. It's led and driven not by academics or officers. It's led by people who have lived experience of adult social care, both nationally and in the borough. And it's really about sharing that vision and values across adult social care to listen and change how we provide adult social care. I think one of the best ways to get over what that can mean to people and the difference it can make in people's lives is to listen to people's stories. And Greg, I think you're going to go first with your story.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, all. Thank you for the invitation and for listening. A little bit about myself. I'm Greg. I'm 52. I have a progressive neurological disorder, which is only going to get worse, hence the name progressive. My interests, hobbies, once active, were very sporting, but I still enjoy doing these things, but I can't participate now. I have to go and sit on the sidelines, unfortunately, and just watch and enjoy from there. Fewer injuries, but it's perhaps a little easier. My diagnosis meant that I've needed to draw on support from the council for the last 9 years. And I wanted to just give you some lived experience from my side as to how we could do better. It's not talking about spending more money, but we've just got to rethink what we do and how we do it and listen more. So in 2014, I was visited by the healthcare professionals, so OTs and physios, who proposed some changes to my home, which I refused. I think the adaptations totaled 27,000, which had been given to me from a grant from the council, and I refused all of those apart from £7,000 worth. I didn't want my house to be turned into either a hospital or something resembling a ballet dance studio with rails everywhere that would not really be used in the long term. So in my view, it was pointless putting in an adaptation for a short term. So I refused. I'm still in the same home, still without those adaptations now, and I'm faring just fine. My support needs have increased, but the council have saved money just from a little bit of future proofing, a little bit of forethought. So I think it will be good. Social care futures vision is more aligned with a better direction of care and travel and support. I was offered other things along with the adaptations, things like day services, but these weren't of interest to me. I have a very sporting background, but I wasn't interested in going to one place and being told that I could do some finger painting or something very limited. So I declined those too. I quickly came to realise that agency support was not for me because my care needs existed beyond 0700 and 2200. Well, what if I finish the cinema at 22:35? How do I get home? I'm not. How can I? You can't pigeonhole people into a very fixed offering. So we need to do more with what we've got, and it can be done. But we need to think more creatively and use the resources better. Instead, I've got a small team of individuals, probably not from your traditional care background. One of them is a builder, for instance. The other one was a florist. But they are considered well-rounded individuals with a lot of life experience, a lot of common sense, and they genuinely care about how I live my life. I've chosen them because they are these individuals. They can be trained. People can learn new things if they want to. So I think we need to do more. We need to listen more. The people that draw on social care, we're real people. We're not case numbers. We don't need to be fixed. We need to live and have the opportunity to be supported more in our own homes, in a place we can call home, be part of our local community, doing the things we want, living the lives we would like to live. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Greg.
So I think what Greg's story there illustrates is how, well, firstly and foremost, Greg's the expert in his own life. Greg knows what's going to work for him. And I think by showing respect for what Greg's opinion and enabling Greg to be able to shape the care and support around him, it's led to much better outcomes for him. So on a wider scale, that's essentially what Social Care Future is about. So it is about pooling our collective skills insights, experience, recognising that we can't do it alone, and that actually if we work together and if we collaborate, we're going to yield much better outcomes for our local community and local residents. So actually by involving people such as Greg and Yvonne, who we'll hear from shortly, in helping us kind of rethink and redesign our services, doing things in a different and more innovative way, that's how we're going to hopefully deliver the best outcomes for people. So as Matt was saying, we've already made a bit of a start on this journey. We've signed up to a community of support, which is a national community of support with organisations or local authorities up and down the country who are also committed to this vision, thinking about how we can collectively work together to achieve this. So connecting with other local authorities to share challenges, to look at solutions together and to share good practice. We formed a local group involving people with lived experience, people from across our health and social care sector, and providers and voluntary and community support services, so that we can collectively work together to kind of put this plan in place. The group meets monthly. It has done since May of last year. And the main focus of that group is to think about how we can turn that vision into reality at a local level. So what are the changes that we want to see within what the context of Wokingham? How we can embed and support a culture of co-production, so that working together model, to promote those benefits, and how we can support people to effectively live gloriously ordinary lives. Our proposal is that we'll come to you on an annual basis with a progress review, both here and at full council. That's hopefully something we can do so that we can continue to kind of share our journey with you. One of the things we've done to try to grow our movement is to hold an event. We did so in the summer of this year. Over 100 local residents attended and people who work across our health and social care space. It was a brilliant, inclusive, well-attended event. There was lots of good discussions that took place during the course of the day. We had 3 main areas for people to attend. There was a Have Your Say space, which was predominantly a consultative space where people could come and share their views and experiences. We had a Things to Do and Learn space, which was about showcasing that good practice and showing people what that future might look like for ourselves in Wokingham. And a Try It Out space, which offered practical advice and support about the different aids and adaptations that people could use to support daily living. We also had an information station, which enabled people to get on-the-spot information and advice and get connected to things in their community, acknowledging that not every solution sort of starts and ends within social care, that actually there's lots that people can do in terms of accessing their wider community to gain that support that they might need. And people with lived experience were central to that day. So they played a key role in kind of delivering aspects of the day, co-presented by yourselves. We had stories throughout the day, we had a video, we had posters on display and a performance piece as well from people with lived experience. I'll just give you an example of how things might look and feel differently using the social care future lens. So our carers information and advice service traditionally would have been commissioned through our circles at the top. So service specification would be written, setting criteria, organisations would apply and the service would be implemented. The way that we looked at things slightly differently and acknowledging and involving people who would directly benefit from that service was at several stages throughout that process. So the first step was actually to make sure that it was a service that people wanted and needed. So we spent some time speaking to carers at events to help shape the service that they wanted to see in the local area. So that helped set our priorities within the basis of our service specification. The next step was to involve carers in the reviewing of those bids. So they spent some time looking at the applications that providers had submitted, gave some very constructive and valuable feedback about those bids, which then helped to inform our decision and outcome. And then the service, which has now been implemented, we continue to work with them to make sure that carers still have a say in the evaluation and the implementation of that service that is on offer. Our next step is also to think about our key performance indicators and how they can help to shape that as well.
So, and we've also got some new projects where we're trying to apply this new way of working. So we've started, the way we start even is different now. So we're talking about people living a good life rather than thinking about beds or cases or visits. It's about people. And we're really working in partnership on the projects we do. So we're kind of trying to look beyond traditional services and stitching together different resources, different people within the community, creativity to really make the most of what we've got. So we're about to kick off a project to look at how adults first access social care, or the front door as it's sometimes called. And we're doing that jointly with Involve, and we're working with people from across the voluntary community, faith-based communities. We've got people from lived experience and other people with interest in making this work, along with the council, to look at right from the beginning of the project to the completion of what those ideas that are going to make things better for our communities. We're also starting not by asking what's wrong, but actually what matters to people. Let's not assume. Let's find out what's really going on. So again, we're doing some work, about to start some work on direct payments, and again, that's about from the very beginning working in collaboration with people with lived experience of direct payments and saying what needs to change, and let's work out those solutions together. So really, it's about just trying to find different ways as we go forward to harness the contributions of everyone in our community to make the best use of what we have. I think over to Yvonne to tell us a little bit about why these changes are important.
Good evening, everybody. This is some insight into my life and the life of my family. Is that better? I'm going to read it directly from this script. Cynical me. When I was first invited along to the core group to look at Social Care Futures project, I admit I was cynical about the whole thing. I wasn't too sure what I could bring to the table, but the involvement of people with lived experience, however, I could see as an opportunity to bring concerns to the group, not just mine, but those of friends and people I met along the way. As far as my lived experience, I've been looking out for my son Daniel for 22 years now. Daniel was born with a genetic syndrome, Smith-Magenis. He was later diagnosed with ASD. Daniel is non-verbal. He has challenging behaviour. He is now severely visually impaired due to his challenging behaviour. He has a deformity of his feet and has undergone many surgeries to keep him mobile. He underwent a heart surgery to correct a vascular ring, which was impacting his ability to eat. He has oral dysphasia. He's had dental, ear and eye surgeries. He has a learning disability along with poor fine motor skills. He's not got great concentration and has no awareness of danger. He's completely unbending and stubborn and is built like a rugby player. Recently, he's developed thickened blood due to, they believe, to mild sleeping apnea. Currently, he's being treated for chronic ear infection and awaiting investigation into a lump in his ear and hearing loss. His feet are deteriorating and we go back to the Nuffield Orthopaedic in the new year. We have to provide Daniel with a no-demand home life, as this is the only way for him and us to live without triggering self-harming behaviours or incurring harm to ourselves or others. On the flip side, Daniel has a lovely sense of humour. He's affectionate and loving. He demonstrates empathy for others. He does love to help out, but it's not usually at home. I'm also a carer for my mother, who has mixed dementia and mobility problems. My mum used to live with us up until about 18 months ago, when I found the strain of trying to keep her safe too much when she started experiencing falls. Trying to juggle Daniel's needs and hers were impacting on my health. The team were fantastic and her move happened within a few months. She's now in supported living, supported by staff from Optalis. I still visit and take her out when I can, not as often as I'd like, as time doesn't allow. I sort her shopping, manage all her bills and support and manage all her medical appointments. I liaise with the care staff. On a personal level, I'm grieving the loss of my mum, as she's no longer the person she was. Over the years, with ups and downs and struggles with family life, I have experienced mental health problems with struggles with depression, anxiety, and loss of self-esteem. I've had to deal myself with an autoimmune Hashimoto's thyroid disease since Daniel's birth, and years of back problems due to damage to my coccyx, which eventually led to surgery for its removal. My husband was recently medically retired due to the impact and continuous stress on his health and performance, leaving worries about a pension that has to be sufficient for both of us. Daniel has an older brother, Jason. He developed ulcerative colitis during his first term at uni, an autoimmune disease, which finally, after having to go on immune suppressants during COVID, is under control. Stress plays its part in this condition, causing flare-ups. Jason works as a biology teacher at the Holt School. Not the most stress-free career choice. You can imagine over the years I've used many services. The change from children's services to adults extremely stressful. School failed for Daniel when he was 18 and college was not an option. Sorting a life outside of education has been a huge challenge and change for us. Life as we knew it was over. At times I feel a prisoner in my own home due to Daniel's possessive and controlling behaviour. We still need a sitter to go out and to try and maintain friendships. Our life is totally controlled by his. The truth of my lived experience is that I'm constantly treading water, overwhelmed, trying to support all my family, maintain my marriage, my friendships, my health. Carers are constantly told if you don't look after yourself, you won't be able to look after anyone else. In truth, we don't have much choice. I run out of my meds. I delay my appointments. I miss social and learning opportunities. I struggle to find the opportunity to exercise. I eat rubbish because I'm too tired to be bothered. I sleep badly a lot of the time, as basically I'm still listening out for Daniel. I wake from nightmares about the future. I don't even have the energy to cry. In all honesty, I sometimes wish my mother would pass and lighten my load. So I also feel huge guilt. Sometimes I think if Daniel passed, it would not be the worst thing. That being a future with no one who cared or loved him. The future. Quite frankly, it scares me, but the principles of social care's future, I believe, could be Daniel's best hope for a happy and safe future. With just small changes in how things are approached and looked at, could change the constant no's to if that's right for Daniel and yourselves, yes. I also hope and believe it will not just see improvements for service users and carers, but the workforce who help and support us. That working as a paid carer will also become valued, respected and appropriately paid for, encouraging more to work in the field. Since joining the Social Care Futures Group, I've felt a sense of value in being part of something, a much needed boost to my self-esteem and confidence. I've met a group of dedicated, genuine people with a huge desire to see change for the better happen. Money helps, but changes to attitude around things and a real understanding of what lived experience means for so many of us is invaluable. So I'd like to ask each and every one of you to sign up for a change in all our attitudes to improve your understanding of the realities of living with disability and caring for family with it. Please be at the front of this change for us and not the latecomer to the party. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Quite difficult to follow that, really, as an officer. I think what we'll do is, can we just skip on to the charter? We just keep going. I suppose Yvonne put that really powerfully, better, I suppose, than I can. We're not asking for more money today. You know, I think people hear me talk a lot about underfunding in adult social care. That's not what this is about. This isn't a new strategy or policy that we want to sit on a website or a shelf gathering dust. This is a real commitment to change. We haven't got it all thought through. We want to do that all together as a journey. But what we have done with Yvonne and Greg and others with lived experience in our group and the 100 or so people that came to the gathering last summer is produce a charter. And I suppose the closest thing to this perhaps is the tenants' involvement charter that comes to council every year. And I suppose what we're looking for is for this group's support, because this is the first outing the charter's had. We're looking for this committee to help us look at progress against the vision each year and the charter action plan, how we're doing, support and ideas, but also to help us spread this widely amongst councillors and hope that the council adopts it as a kind of cross-party charter vision for adult social care in January. And I think as part of that, we want to do a series of briefings. We'd listen to how you think we could do that effectively, but essentially get to more councillors, maybe to raise the profile of adult social care, what it is and what we're trying to do with this charter and vision. So thank you. Thank you to Yvonne and Greg, and thank you committee for allowing us just a little bit of time and bearing with us with our technical difficulties. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Matt. A huge thank you to Greg and Yvonne for telling your stories. I sometimes sit on the TLIP panel, and that's where you hear what the residents say they want. And it was very interesting that Greg was saying, you know, we don't necessarily need to spend more money. Sometimes we need to spend a little less, and we can get a better solution that's more suited to the person, to the customer, to the stakeholder. And, you know, I think that's absolutely crucial. The only disappointing thing I heard in that whole presentation was that we were going to see this annually. I would definitely recommend that we see it maybe quarterly or something like that. And when we do see it, from my side, I would personally say that it would be very crucial to listen to people receiving the services. And, you know, we hear good stories today. You know, Yvonne commented that it took a limited amount of time to get the accommodation situation changed. We also need to listen to the sides where, you know, the fantastic machine that you're working doesn't work so well. You know, I always say to Matt, I want to know the bad stories. The good stories are fantastic. We love the good stories, but we also listen to the bad as well. I would like to, if it's okay with you, I'd like to open to any questions from the committee. Rebecca?
Thank you. You've answered some of my questions, because I was having a good look through this afternoon, and coming from a healthcare background, you know, this is kind of gold standard. This is what you would expect. This is what you would want for people that are receiving care. And I'm sure Greg can tell us some stories of where he has not received this kind of level of care. So one of the things I did think of, because I'd looked at it and thought, well, actually, who is in this core group? Who are the people? But you've answered that by some of you being here tonight. But what about the people that aren't able to communicate? How are we going to get their voices across? Because they are a lot of the people that are receiving this kind of care and need it, and not always able to verbalise, communicate. So how are we going to get that? And also, sorry, final question was, how are we going to make sure that this just isn't, like you said, sat on the shelf gathering dust as a great piece of work? This is marvellous. How are we going to make sure that this really does ensure change across the borough for care?
To address your point about voices seldom heard and how we ensure that those who are maybe more at risk of marginalisation being able to input into the work that we're doing, one of the things we're looking at doing is ensuring that we have broad representation from across our communities of interest. So we certainly aren't there yet. We're building this movement of interested people, but we're very mindful anytime we embark on a project who some of those key stakeholders might be, and seeking to build relationships where we might not have those already in place. So an example of that is with our faith sector. So we've made some strides to connect with our local Sikh community and ensuring that they are part of a particular project that we're working on, because we know that there is a barrier to access for that particular group of people. So how can we work with them to understand what those barriers look like and how can we overcome them together? So I think where people with more profound disabilities, it's really important that we have carer representation also in that space. So Yvonne holds us to task very beautifully when we're not maybe thinking about everybody's needs in that group. And I think it is about holding those honest conversations, creating a space where people feel safe and able to voice their opinions. You said, you know, it's great to hear when things go well, and we also want to hear when things don't go so well. We're very good at talking about when things well, very good at saying that, because we need to learn and we need to think about how we can do things differently. So that happens also. With two parts to your question, the other escapes me.
Yeah, well, the other bit was how are we going to make sure it doesn't gather dust? And I suppose part of the reason for coming here with the vision and the charter, making that public, this is our first outing today, going to council, committing to coming annually, more than annually, to give updates is partly a kind of commitment to, I suppose it's the overview bit of how can we develop plans, but the scrutiny bit also, and the holding to account. And also, I suppose the other reason this won't be hopefully, or definitely won't be a stuffy document gathering dust, is we have Greg and Yvonne here, and they're part of the show, and you know they're here to keep it real and focused and doing stuff, you know, rather than a more traditional strategy approach.
Shahid?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Very powerful stories you highlighted. The challenges I think you want to point out, even as carers, obviously the challenges you go through personally yourself. It is not easy, the work which obviously you do day in and day out, 7 days a week throughout the year, you know. So it's a huge, challenge for yourself, and that obviously affects, as you said, your marriage and your health certainly as well. So you need to be supported in that situation as well. That's another, I suppose, a challenge for the council to support you, because if you're strong, as you said yourself, then you can provide that support for the rest of the family as well. Greg, you made a point that also each person is different, so you cannot have a solution which works. It's not a car assembly line, right? All the cars are alike and similar layout. Each person is different. The needs are different. Therefore, they're customized to their particular needs. And that also becomes a challenge as well for the delivery point of view as well, I'm sure, from the council point of view, because typically say, okay, this is where it is and it's going to work, but we know in practice it's not like that. Why? Because we're dealing with people and each person is different. And that's what the challenge is. The question, Matt, for you as well and for the team is that over the years, perhaps we've seen a lot of strategies. And I mean in a very positive, constructive way when I'm saying this. We can have wonderful visions, wonderful strategies. The challenge comes in the execution of those strategies, implementation where the challenge is. And does it actually deliver what we initially wanted to deliver? And how do we monitor it? How do we make sure it does the job which we wanted to do? And that, to me, that is a bigger challenge. Then this is great. Vision is great, but it's the implementation of the vision itself. So, I mean, how can we be assured that it actually implementation of this program will deliver what we want it to deliver, and what safeguards and what policies and procedures we have in place to make sure? Because I can see there's lots of challenges in this process. It's not as simple. In terms of obviously the social care workers, we know there's issues there. In terms of there's a shortage of the good social care workers. We know there's a challenge of not only Woking but across the country. There's a challenge of a high retention. Retention rate is very high. There's pay scales is an issue. Obviously, they have to live end of the day as well. So they're not really highly paid. My heart goes out to the safe care workers because I'm involved in a number of things and the amount of work and the difficult work they do. But I do feel as a society, their work is not rewarded. They're not being compensated. And this, I think, is a bigger issue, and not only local, but across the country, I find. They deserve more than what the work which they do. I think most of the people probably won't be able to do the work which they do on a daily basis. But that's a different issue in a sense. What I'm saying is there's a number of issues, challenges, and to me, that is a bigger issue. And it's good to know what your thoughts are in terms of how we're gonna make sure that our vision is delivered in a way, subsequently, and gives us the results which we obviously desire.
Well, so I don't think there's any disagreement in terms of some of the things you said here, particularly about the workforce. I think everyone in the group recognise that and see that as an issue. Adult social care is in a crisis, and there are many, many challenges. I don't know that we have the answers in terms of we certainly don't have an implementation plan or a magic wand to get rid of those things. But I suppose any big change starts with a commitment and a kind of move in the right direction. And I think that's where we're starting with today. We're starting with something that is different, which is a charter written by people with lived experience in the borough. What we're looking for as step one is a kind of cross-council and a growing commitment to that across the borough. Implementation then, and how successful that is and how much change we get is down to all of us, I think. And we've all got different roles in that. Obviously, as director, I have a accountable role, but we all have a role in that change. So I suppose that's the answer, really. There isn't a kind of this is all worked out yet. This is a journey, and this is the first step on that journey. I don't know, does anyone else want to add anything?
I think I was just reflecting that it's also about, to your points, about collaboration. And so I think some of that is then about one of the ways of making this happen with the challenges that we face is by actually looking more broadly. And that's one of the things, again, that this charter is all about, is looking more broadly than like the traditional places. So it's about engaging with different community groups, different interest groups, different voluntary groups, all the bits of the council. So housing, transport, health, all the people here and the lived experience. And it's if we all then do something together, we can achieve something really great. And I think Greg's example, a small personal one, talks to that as well. That he's got people that aren't from the traditional caring background who enjoy music like he does, and so he goes to the gigs with them, and he has a really great time, and so do they. And so I think that's the point. It's that reciprocity. It's us thinking collaboratively about how we tackle some of the challenges that exist in our borough for our residents.
Chair, just coming back on that one, if I may. This is the initial charter, and then I'm assuming there will be subsequent work will be done on it in terms of the implementation plans later on as well. And what is that timeline looks like?
Well, in the presentation, we talked about some of the things that we're working on now. So certainly out of that event, there are a number of themes that we're now shaping into action plans. So for us, it's charter, commitment, full council. This is what we're aiming for in January. And then shortly after that, we'll put together an action plan, bring it here, develop that. And then I suppose almost exactly like TLIP do, come back every year, could be more than that, to update on actions and progress towards that vision.
Are we intend to finish that in the next 6 months, 9 months, in terms of implementation plan?
Inside 6 months.
Inside 6 months.
Yeah,
That's what I was.
Yeah, but obviously the implementation plan will sort of grow as the journey to the vision grows.
And Caroline?
No one's given me any daggers here, so I think that's a good commitment.
Thank you. My question's actually been answered about how you're going to measure it. I suppose a lot of it you won't be able to measure because you'll know you don't get shouted about when you're successful, but you have answered my question, so thank you.
Rochelle?
Can we inform some of the rest of the councillors, not just us, what's going on? Because it's something that we're all going to have to deal with eventually for ourselves, for our families, for children, for anything. And it's something that is going to be interesting for them. They may not have a full implementation now, and you said it's going to be in 6 months, but to give some ideas of some of these things that are happening and some of the ideas that we're developing, you might have more than just us, just the councils on this thing, who can actually help you roll it out better.
I think the answer is yes. And I think that in terms of one of the suggestions here, which is setting up a series of briefings for the rest of the councillors, but definitely that's about, it's about finding out what it's about, but it's also about getting people involved and signed up, councillors. So we'll do that at full council, but we'll do those briefings as well. And it'd be really good if members of this committee can help us get people to those briefings as well. So,
Phil?
First of all, formally, I have to apologise, Chairman, for my unavoidable lateness. I also want to apologise to Greg and Yvonne. I promise you faithfully that after leaving this meeting and at the first opportunity, I will be watching the recording so that I can catch up. I'm very grateful to Matt for having given me some pre-briefing. So if I ask a question, please just tell me you've dealt with it. But with regards to examples of how this has been implemented elsewhere, are we comfortable that we can deal with any of the pitfalls that have been met in other areas? And if we are, can we pre-plan for them, or are we just going to be able to recognise them when they happen?
So one of the things we touched upon, Phil, was the network that we're part of. So other local authorities across the country who have also made a commitment to this vision. So we're working together to understand kind of, what those pitfalls might be, some of the challenges, sharing resources, intelligence, good practice, which has been great. So we're able to go to that forum and say, we're looking to embark on a piece of work around X. Has anybody made a start on this? So it gives us a head start in many areas which we wouldn't have otherwise had the benefit of. In terms of where we position ourselves in Wokingham, without maybe bragging too much, I think we're ahead of the game somewhat in terms of other local authorities. So other local authorities are looking to us to understand our approach and the way we've taken it, the way we've involved people from the outset, to help to guide and shape some of the work that we're doing. So we've been asked to speak at a number of forums that have taken part at a national scale for us to share some of our learnings and the work that we've been doing. That's not to say that we've cracked it or we're anywhere near where we need to be, but certainly in terms of building that movement of people who are going to help support and shape this local delivery of the vision is where we're heading towards. So yeah, hopefully that goes some way to answer your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. I think it would be, I would appreciate it, certainly in my position, if I could have some form of briefing. I expect, Matt, that you might do this, of how that partnership and how that co-working is going, and where there are, because there will be things happening at different speeds in different areas, because they have certain resources or whatever else it might be. It would be really very useful, because obviously when we're discussing in chamber, and we're talking with our counterparts on the executive, that we can have proper discussions about how we can enable this, because we might be in opposition, but actually, as far as I'm concerned here, we have to be cooperators in making something that works, that's been brought together by your team.
Absolutely, Phil. We can do something which is kind of a bespoke briefing for yourself, and then the offer is really out to all parties. We see this as a kind of cross-council initiative, and we're quite happy to come to group meetings or whatever it takes, really, to spread the word. So yes, that's the answer to that.
If there's no further questions, I just want to. Sorry, Tony. Please go ahead, Tony.
Thanks. I just want to say I was very impressed by the presentation, especially from both Greg and Yvonne. It sort of ties in with my own personal observations of such situations. The carer it can often, and the right carer, as Greg was saying, can be pivotal in the quality of life of the people involved. And one of the most important things I think we as a group can do is to support the carers. And I think, I don't know if that's become a focus, but I think the carers are really important in this situation. Hopefully that's something that you take on board.
I think Alice is online and has got a question. Alice? I can't hear you at the moment, Alice.
Can the slides be taken down, please, before I can speak? Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we can hear you, Alice.
Thank you. One of the things that I've observed is the fact that everybody thinks that you go to the faith groups in Wokingham, but actually a lot of other communities go across the borough to other faith groups as well. So, one of my experience has been with the access for GP practices. A lot of them were from Wokingham who were in Reading. So maybe working with them might be helpful as well. The other thing is also an observation that I have is, could your comms be one of our priorities for the implementation? Because a lot of people don't consider comms, celebrating that you have this. So, consider communications as a priority to share with the public because the public needs to know what is happening locally.
They're very good points. Thanks a lot, Alice, for that. Maybe we could go back to the presentation. Sorry with that. I think we've finished with our questions. Is there any more? I want to get a feeling from this committee whether we feel annual or quarterly updates would be best. What's the opinion in the room?
I think quarterly might be a little bit too often, if I'm honest, purely because of the amount of work that needs to be done, and to actually show the real effect of it, we're not going to really see anything. Whether you want to make it, twice a year or annually, but I think quarterly is a little bit too often. That's just my opinion.
Rochelle?
Twice a year is probably the best thing at this point. Because again, I agree with Rebecca. Quarterly is too much.
Okay, fine. So really, I'd like a vote at this point. If it's okay with Matt, that we propose biannual. Is that correct? Biannual updates from Matt and especially the team. All those in favour? Brilliant, unanimous. Thank you very much. Sorry. The other recommendation is? Okay, sorry, excuse me, just an admin point. We also need to take a vote on noting the principles included within the Woking Borough Council's Social Care Future Charter. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Any other votes? Yeah, we've done that. That's half year. Okay. Apparently we need to also vote on a separate briefing for the representatives of the HOS committee to attend. All those in favour? Great, that's unanimous, all unanimous. Thank you very, very much. You're free to go and watch the football or the rugby or something, I don't know, whatever you wish to do. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate your views and comments. Thank you. Sorry. Right, we need to move on to item 38, which is Vicky and Russell. Are you going to stay for this point? Yeah. Okay. So I would like to hand over to Vicky and Russell. Thank you.
Do you want me just to do a quick intro? So I think this item, we brought the adult social care workforce strategy, and this item is to look at the plan in a bit more detail for dealing with the adult social care workforce directly employed in the council. And I suppose, Councillor Eunice talked about some of this. Workforce is a real issue in adult social care. You could say it's a crisis. In terms of the council and its directly employed staff, we just simply aren't, there just simply aren't enough OTs and social workers to deal with the demand that we have. So I would say, or make a plea, that we do need, this is something that's a national issue. We need a national social care workforce strategy. We have an NHS one, but it was silent on care and the social care workforce, and we really just can't have one without another. But I suppose with that context, Russell, who works very closely with adult social care and is in HR, and Vicky, who is our principal social worker, have been working really hard to try and mitigate against that and buck the trend in terms of our council employed social care workforce. So I'll leave a presentation to them.
Yes, so by way of an update, the Adult Social Care Workforce Strategy was launched in 2022. It was developed with engagement with staff, and it's a strategy that sets out a 4-year framework for the adult social care workforce in the Borough of Wokingham. Obviously enhancing the skills, diversity and competence of our workforce, and with the aim of increasing stability and career opportunities within the sector. So that's largely for our own staff, but obviously supporting the wider social care sector as well. So the strategy is broken down into 3 main themes: recruitment and retention, workforce development, and well-being.
Sorry, Russell, to interrupt you. This committee always reads the reports, so if you want to rattle through, we don't need it verbatim.
Okay, no, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so in terms of recruitment and retention, well, Vicky and her team, the practice development team, have revamped our induction for adult social care, and that's now embedded in the whole induction process for new adult social care staff. Stay interviews, you might not have heard of that, you've heard of exit interviews, but stay interviews are where we have interviews with our staff that are staying, just to pick up any issues so that we can address those at an early stage. So we have undertaken a pilot for that, and we're hoping to be able to extend that going forward. A dedicated adult social care recruitment page on our website. You may have seen it. There's a video with Matt talking on it, plus some sound bites also from some of our other key staff. We have looked at the non-financial reward package, so just promoting some of the benefits there are for working for the council, gym membership, discounts, etc. So we have reviewed that, and that's become standard for all our recruitment packs now, going out for every job, but that obviously supports adult social care. And corporately, the council has invested in some new job boards, which have proven very fruitful in terms of getting more applications. So Ad Warrior is a corporate resource that we use, and Adults and Children's Services have jointly negotiated a package of unlimited advertising on Community Care Jobs Board, which has again proven really fruitful. So just some other things around recruitment and retention. We have a new resourcing team as part of the HR restructure that happened last year. So that's a real increase in use of social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., to promote Wokingham roles. We've undertaken a big piece of work earlier in the year. So we've done a salary review of all the registered social work and occupational therapy roles, so that we can be competitive in the local job market. And for our non-registered staff, we've implemented a pay progression route and criteria to improve the career opportunities for them, and to improve retention. Now I'm going to pass over to Vicky to do the...
Thank you, Russell. I'm conscious that's a very busy slide, and you've just already said that you don't want us to go through it verbatim, but so my role is more looking at how we develop our own workforce and how we make sure that our social workers and occupational therapists and other social care staff have got the right training and skills and competence to be able to do a really good job with our customers and carers. So just to focus on a few of the things that we've been doing since the strategy was introduced. Our social work apprenticeship scheme has been really successful. So it was only introduced nationally, I think, 4 years ago now. And we've had 5 of our own staff complete that and qualify, and 4 of them have stayed with us. So it's really good in terms of retention and developing our own staff. And we've got 6 currently on social work apprenticeship, so that's really positive. Similarly, we also have our occupational therapy apprenticeship, and we've got 3 currently kind of midway through that, so that's really good. Our newly qualified social workers do what's called an ASYE, an Assessed Supported Year in Employment, and we've invested quite a lot of time and energy in developing our programme. And since 2020, so 2021, we've had 10 completed that, and 9 have stayed with us and are now in fully qualified social worker roles. So again, really good retention. We had Skills for Care came and did a quality assurance audit with us of our ASYE programme, and that was really positive, the feedback that they gave us about that, and that was also really good feedback from our staff as well in terms of what that experience is like for them. Just to hone in on a couple of others, so we have been running some values and behaviours training, and we commissioned that with CLASP, a local self-advocacy group, and promoted this for all of our staff to attend, again, to really focus on their values and behaviours. Anything else in there that anyone wanted to pick up on, or do questions at the end?
We'll do questions.
Okay. Okay. So the other aspect of the workforce strategy is well-being, and we hosted and facilitated an event for National Mental Health Awareness Day, and we invited external speakers to join us, and we ran various workshops for our staff, and the feedback from that was really good, and people felt valued and able to explore mental health issues for our staff within that day, so that was really successful. And we also accessed Wellbeing Matters, which was provided by Berkshire Healthcare Foundation Trust last year, and again really well attended by our staff. Unfortunately, it was funded from central government, and that's now been withdrawn, but we're kind of hoping that might be reinstated at some point, but something that we would like to rerun ourselves. And we also we analyse our sickness and absence data as well to try and identify trends and to look at any potential solutions or support that people might need. So every year the Local Government Association run a health check survey. It used to be called a social work health check. It's now been expanded to include all adult social care staff. And it's one of the largest workforce surveys in the UK. And it includes all of our 3 work streams, so recruitment and retention, workforce development and wellbeing. And it asks the views from our staff in relation to there's 8 employee standards from the LGA. And this year, 80 people responded, which was really high and they're much higher than in previous years. So we got some really good data and intelligence from our staff about what's working for them and what's not working so well for them. And the feedback was, on the whole, really, really positive from our staff. So it was a really good piece of work, and it kind of reinforced some of the things that we think that we're doing quite well for our staff, and highlighted some things that we thought actually perhaps we could do that better. How do we do that a bit better? And the LGA, they created like a mean score for all the questions asked, and we actually scored 3rd in the South East region and 18th nationally. So that was really good feedback, and that was out of the 19 South East local authorities and 152 local authorities nationally. So that was really positive. Thank you.
Okay, so just sort of following up on that, we've done what we've achieved already or what we're currently doing. So just the planned future activity. So in terms of recruitment and retention, we're developing a timetable of ongoing attendance at key careers events. So that's for universities, colleges. We're also looking to perhaps get into schools for youngsters that may be thinking about working in adult social care. We're going to add a voluntary sector recruitment page to the adult social care recruitment page that I talked about earlier, to the web pages, just to support the voluntary sector in recruiting. A targeted recruitment campaign, I say, working again with our resourcing team in HR, sort of highlighting the benefits of living and working in Wokingham and using some of the tools that we spoke about earlier, Community Care and Ad Warrior, to do a very targeted recruitment campaign for adult social care staff, and looking to identify existing resource, to embed the stay interviews as an ongoing tool to retention going forward. In terms of workforce development, excuse me, continue and further develop opportunities offered. So we already have a comprehensive training programme, and obviously our apprenticeship scheme and ASYE programmes that Vicky has already mentioned. Working closely with the newly appointed co-production lead, who you've met earlier, Hilary, and implement a values and behaviours framework, and to embed that co-production in our daily work. There's also a planned CLT report going around recommending work experience opportunities using a range of models, so weekly work experience for school age students, but also including the national T levels as well. And well-being, there's some activity going on corporately again around a modern workforce concept, and that supports well-being initiatives by encouraging people to take breaks, having breaks in between meetings, etc., and how we timetable that. People that just get inundated with emails, how to manage that as well. So, any questions?
Caroline was first, I think.
Thank you for that. As a pensioner, do you consider when somebody's coming up to pensioner age, persuading them to stay on a bit longer or with reduced hours? Thank you.
Well, we don't, obviously, we don't enforce people we can't enforce people to do that. We do have a flexible working policy here, so that people can actually request to change their hours or increase their hours, and as long as that meets the needs of the service, then that's something that we consider quite regularly, yes.
I think, Bill, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, thanks. I wondered, when I look into this, I was wondering, when you're researching what other local authorities in the area are offering, have you been able to do an analysis which can identify any themes as to why someone would choose to work for them, apart from location, for any of our neighbours apart from us, which you could perhaps weaponise in your approach?
But obviously, I did some benchmarking around salary information. It's normally around salary. I think that we're probably comparable to our local competitors in terms of what we offer in non-financial benefits and flexible working. But it's certainly something that we could consider delving into a little bit further. But this, Tom, did you want to?
I'll just add when you finished. Yeah.
So yes, but certainly we did some comprehensive benchmarking around salaries, and we are now really well placed, and we're already beginning to see some benefits of that. I mean, compared to the period June to October last year to this year, we've doubled the number of applications that we've got for adult social care roles.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And it's exactly what I would have hoped and expected that you've done, and you've described that here. I know that some of the work that I do in my daytime profession, where we have healthcare assistants Some of the work that we've done is around assisting people with responsibilities, for example, for their school-age children and that sort of thing. And especially when the pay levels that we're talking about here are not the pay levels which are going to support putting children into aid support during the working period, because it would make it uneconomical to work. I wonder if there is any scope for us to do something just a little bit different, which would help give people hours here and hours there around the particular child responsibilities that there may be. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think if I understand the question, because I think, as Russell said, there's a financial element to this, isn't there? But then there's a flexible working element as well, in terms of being flexible and being able to offer people something that suits their own personal arrangements. But I think as well, it's and just to add to your previous question, it's also about what we offer and how we retain our staff, and that's about the surveys that we complete and the stay interviews, and finding out what's important to our staff as well, and why people would want to work for Wokingham and not for another neighbouring authority. And it might be about their own career development or personal development or their learning, and I think that combined with the financial element and the flexible working is what we're trying to achieve.
Dahid?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's again on the similar theme here. I think it's good that obviously we are exploring all different options to recruit the carers, as that's what we expect. But the problem I see it is the retention. Retaining them is you can have a lot of applications coming in, and you're busy recruiting, but there's a bucket there, and there's so much leakage in the bottom of the bucket that you never will catch up, in sort of thing. I need to fill that. So do you see that as a huge problem in Wokingham? Because that's certainly what I hear from other places as well. Even there's some private companies who are doing this, they have a similar challenge as well. And if it is, then what is our turnover rate? If there's any, that'd be useful to know. As a figure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle across the whole adult social care sector around turnover of staff. Certainly in terms of implementing some of the initiatives out of this strategy, the turnover now has stabilised and is slightly going down. So we're for Wokingham Borough Council staff. So that's really positive for us.
14% currently. Yeah.
So these are we're talking about adult social care, the general staff, or are we talking about the care workers staff?
So this is adult social care staff. Sorry, Matt.
This is this is council employed staff, so our own OTs and social workers. That's what we're talking about today. But the turnover rates in the wider social care market, you might call it the hands-on care market, home carers, care homes, are much higher, and I think that's more like 33%, something like that. Obviously, we don't directly employ all of those people, so we don't know because it's company by company, but that's the sort of rate around there, and that's due to some of those things that you talked about before in terms of being able to pay wages, that compete with or don't compete with supermarkets, for instance.
Yeah, I just want to come back on this one. Yeah, because I feel this is a big issue, and this because they are not paid that much. Let's put it this way: the rate of pay, hourly rate, is very low, as I think we all know it's not. And we live in an area which is quite prosperous, which is a benefit, but also is very expensive too as well. Accommodation is very expensive. I mean, if you have children, where do you put the children, right? I mean, again, childcare is very expensive. So everything you look at, so it has to be. So, but even what I observed is even a small change. End of the day, finances matters. We can have all the other things in place. Some people, you can give them the gym membership. I don't have time to go to the gym. They'll be so busy. And the reason, I mean, this is what I've heard as well. So look, I need to do at least 8 hours, 10-hour shift to just pay the bills. Forget about going to the gym. You can give me a membership, but I'm not going to have time to go there. So that benefit actually doesn't help them. I mean, the reason I'm saying that, this is what I hear from other people, social care workers. And what I've seen is some people, they give some bonuses, etc., maybe after 6 months or after a year. Do we have something similar here as well? Again, it's incentivize them to stay with us longer, because at the end of the day, we don't want to lose them. Once we got them, it's costly to pay. Obviously, to recruit, it's a huge cost to that. But also, once we got them, we want to retain them. And that bonus we might pay actually will be less than recruiting another care worker. So it's a vicious circle, isn't it? So I'm just wondering whether do we have something in place, because at the end of the day, we are competing with other market outside as well.
I mean, I can obviously only speak for our own adult social care workforce in Wokingham, and we're constantly reviewing the turnover rates and the vacancy rates and the sickness rates so that we can address some of those issues and come up with some possible solutions. I mean, the point of the strategy is not to be, again, one to be put on the shelf and done and dusted. It should be treated as a live document and an evolving document. And as we monitor some of this stuff, if we need to intervene with some other solutions, that's certainly something that we'll pick up. And we have leads for each of the work streams with engagement from staff as well. So if we pick up any of those issues, then it's intended that it will become an evolving document as opposed to just a one-off, tick the box and done, because this is going to be an issue going forward for a long while, I suspect.
Rebecca?
Different angle. I was quite impressed by your retention of your social workers. The fact, you're keeping so many of them after training them, it's impressive. Their apprenticeships, is there a different access in for people that might not necessarily normally be able to go and do a degree to become a social worker? That's interesting. Also, which means it could be more accessible to people and popular. Is there something to tie them in? If they start their apprenticeship, are they expected? Is there something in the contract which says we stay for 6 months? I can remember doing a nursing course and I had to stay somewhere for so long afterwards. Just hope you can still do that anymore. You probably can't.
Obviously, the apprenticeships are funded through the apprenticeship levy, which we have to contribute, and then we get money back, which we can spend against. Unfortunately, we can't require people to stay if they're funding through the apprenticeship funding. So that answers that question.
Just in terms of the first part of that question, so people that have done our social work apprenticeship so far, they've been in social care practitioner roles. So those are people who don't have a degree, who don't necessarily have A levels, but have a functional level 2 English and maths. So it is an opportunity for a different group of people. And if people don't have functional level 2 English and maths, then we can signpost for them to gain those qualifications. So there's absolutely different route from I wouldn't say from school, but from kind of college age to come in. But we do, at the moment, our kind of strategy is that people come in, work in those social care practitioner roles first, so they're gaining that experience, and then they're able to apply that experience within the apprenticeship route.
Just to come back, then, that's impressive. If there's no way you can force them to stay, that you're obviously doing a good job of it.
We do. I have to say we do. We have what we call practice learning groups every 6 weeks. So we give people a lot of support. They obviously do the apprenticeship via the university, but we also give a lot of one-to-one and group support as well. So we do build up those relationships during those 3 years as well.
Any further questions? Alice, have you got a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to find out, for retention reasons, have you looked at trying to have a robust whistleblowing strategy or program so that people get trust that you know what the process is genuine? Because that could also help, because I haven't seen that in your strategy.
Do you mean a whistleblowing policy?
Yeah.
We do have one as part of the HR package of policies and procedures. We are on a programme of reviewing all of the policies and procedures at the moment, and obviously they will be reviewed and they'll go to Personnel Board and the unions to a review before they're signed off.
It's just the fact that I think that's one of the things that to gain trust, that whistleblowing, the ability to whistleblow and not be victimized would be one way of retaining people. Because I do think that will be one of your selling points too, as well. Because some people will stay, but if they have a sad experience because of bullying or discrimination, they're not going to stay. So that would be good to be evident, clear, in order for people to understand that you are serious about this.
Yeah, and just to supplement that, we also look at all of our casework, whether, if people raise grievances or if there's capabilities, and we review those and make sure that we take the learning from that and constantly review our policies if we need to, and that goes through to Personnel Board for those to be signed off, as I said.
Thank you.
Just one question from me. I'm very pleased to see here. I've been hassling Wes about understanding more about the workforce strategy for a long time. The question, I work for a company which is a little bit patrician, and part of that is its active attempts to retain especially female staff. So there is a subsidised creche, childcare, at the company. And I've said to Wes every 3 months that I see him, is WBC ever going to think about a subsidised creche or childcare or something? Because I expect that a high proportion of your staff are female, and potentially with children or caring needs. It's not. I don't want an answer. I just want people to go away and think, because what we all want is a very stable workforce, and retention is always the massive key that needs to be unlocked. So my actual question really is around the exit interviews or stay interviews. What really are the most critical 2 or 3 things that come out of those interviews?
Probably pay, top of the list, but we're hoping that we've addressed at least part of that. Career progression opportunities, but again, we're trying, as part of the strategy, trying to have those development opportunities and progression routes for staff. In terms of your point about the creche, we did, when developing the strategy, we had some focus groups with a lot of staff, so we engaged with the staff. It's not something that came up through those focus groups. It's not something that's come up, as far as I'm aware, through exit interviews or the stay interviews. And obviously, if we were going to offer that as a corporate resource, then that would have to probably be directed to the personnel board. But it certainly didn't come up as part of, I mean, you sat in on some of those focus groups and so did I. And it certainly didn't come up in those as that would be a benefit for adult social care staff.
Just to just add to that, sorry, because of the third thing in terms of stay interviews, but also the feedback from the LGA health check survey was about supervision and support as well, that people really valued. We have regular 4-weekly supervision with a one-to-one with the manager, and that's came up as if you have a good supervisor and a good manager, that is really important to people and a good reason for people to stay.
Thank you so much for both of your time. We really appreciate the update. Do we plan to ask them back? Or? Yes, we would like to see you again if that's okay with you guys. Thank you very much. And we move on to the next item, which is a seasonal vaccine update. Helen, if you'd like to start, please. Again, don't sort of read things verbatim, just highlight the key points, please.
That's fine, thank you. So just to introduce myself, so I'm Helen Clark. I'm the Deputy Director for Berkshire West Place as part of the Bob ICB Integrated Care Board NHS organisation. So I've got some slides obviously here which have gone out in the pack with regard to our seasonal vaccine programme, so both which covers both the COVID-19 vaccinations as well as the flu vaccinations. I won't go through them all, but I have got some updates on some of the figures, if that's okay. As you can imagine, it's quite a fast-moving programme at the moment, so things have moved on quite a bit since these figures were issued. So just to summarise, to focus first of all on the COVID programme, if that's okay. So people will probably be aware it's a slightly smaller programme than we've run previously in previous tranches, focusing now on the over 65s, patients in care homes, younger patients in clinical risk groups and carers, as well as younger patients who live with patients with people with weakened immune systems. So I think in total we've got just over 61,000 patients in Wokingham in the eligible cohort. And the programme's been delivered through a combination of 5 sites run by our primary care networks, supported by 3 pharmacy sites, with Wokingham Hospital also acting as a hub, providing vaccinations for staff working in health and social care. So in terms of updates on the data, so we're currently just under 56% of the eligible population have been vaccinated. Looking at it on a PCN, primary care network level across our 6 primary care networks, we've got uptake currently varying from 50% to just under 63%. To give a little bit of context on that, so across Bob, the uptake is just over 51%, which is the highest in the South East region at the moment. So although the official target for uptake is 72%, comparatively compared to the rest of the region, we're doing well. And similarly, the South East region is the second highest in the country at the moment. So I think our figures broadly sort of compare with what we're seeing elsewhere. Within that uptake, we still do see some quite stark differences between different groups of people. We haven't got as much data this time around this tranche of the programme, so apologies, I've just included some Bob figures just to illustrate this point. So just picking out one of the particular pertinent areas of variation is still ethnicity, and we can see at a Bob level we've got a variation in uptake between different ethnic groups, currently now ranging between 56.53% in the white British group down to the lowest is 11.58% within the Pakistani community. So a lot of our work around this programme this time is very much focused on doing outreach and sort of targeted pieces of work to try and work with those particular groups to understand some of the barriers to taking up the vaccination and work with them to improve those figures. So I just want to speak briefly about flu, if that's okay. I mean, obviously, flu is a much more well-established programme. It's been running for many years. As broadly as previously, we're focusing this year on the over 65s, again, younger people in clinical risk groups and health and social care workers. All of our GP practices are part of the signed up to provide flu vaccinations this year, which they've been doing over the last few weeks, many running the clinics in conjunction with the COVID clinics. So lots of people may have had a jab in each arm, which is the recommended approach for most patients this year, where that's practical. Again, supported by provision within community pharmacies. Unfortunately, there's no published data yet on the flu uptake. But the work that we've been doing with primary care so far leads us to think the uptake is similar to in previous years. There's been no major issues identified in terms of the programme. Particular push at the moment around vaccination of 2 to 3 year olds and also pregnant women, which are always areas that we sort of have additional focus on. But nothing significant coming out at the moment in comparison to previous years. And obviously we will share uptake figures once available. So the rest of the slides really focus on communications and engagement work. So we do in Wokingham still have just over 27,000 patients eligible for the COVID vaccination who've not yet taken it up. So this is a really key piece of work, really focusing on both COVID and flu vaccinations alongside some of the wider winter messaging. And we're running a programme of comms running really from September right through to the end of January, and a combination of different methods of engaging people, some of which we've outlined here. So as you would expect, including sort of social media, standard media work, and also focusing on getting messages out through outreach approaches, making sure that the services that people come into contact with anyway are aware of the programme and able to advise people on how best to access vaccination. So the pack includes some of the sort of example of some of the materials that we're using. This is sort of evolving all the time. We're building on some of the national resources, but also trying to develop local messaging. Just done a particular sort of focus around Halloween and flu vaccinations for children linked to that. So there's just some examples within the pack. And then before I finish, I just wanted to say a little bit about things that are happening locally. So again, it is a Bob managed programme with sort of place focuses within it. And on the final slide, we've talked about some of the things that are going on in the Oracle in Reading, some of the sort of soft play centres, just to highlight a few Wokingham specific examples. So we do currently have information both on bus stops and screens within buses on all of the Reading and Wokingham bus routes. We're doing quite a lot of liaison directly with community groups. So an example for Wokingham is work going on with CLASP with regard to patients with a learning disability, who again are one of the focus groups. And we've also done press releases and had interviews on Radio Berkshire, which is obviously hopefully also covering the Wokingham area. But we're very mindful of making sure that the activities, whilst targeted at the population groups where there's the biggest need to increase uptake, do also cover the full geography and make use of sort of most appropriate opportunities within those geographies. And we very much welcome comments and suggestions in that regard. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's fine. I think I've finished. So
thank you very much, Helen. Bill.
Sorry, I took the sentence. I very much welcome feedback to be there. I've got a couple of questions. I've got to tell you, I want to give you some feedback on the graph you've given us on page 26, because I think it's really unhelpful. They've given us a range for that graph, 32 to 39%. Doesn't really do justice to the numbers you're giving us with regards to what I recognise you're saying is that it's about a third of the population that are doing uptaking. Now, when I look at what you've given us there, I wonder how is the uptake of vaccines against availability of vaccinations for Wokingham people. Are we taking up as many as are available to Woking? I know that you can travel a long way, but are there more vaccinations available in centres which are further away, maybe in Reading or elsewhere in the Berkshire West? And then the third question is the uptake by ethnicity, which is across Bob. Now, what I know is that in Woking we have a particularly large Hong Kong population, which we've had described to us in previous meetings. I don't know what the percentage of population in other areas in Berkshire West look like, but it seems to me that maybe it would be helpful if we could have an ethnicity uptake within Wokingham, because then if we're working as local councillors and but the local authority as well, then it can help us to promote and target particular groups which may not be taking that up. I mean, I noticed that there was an advert and great for which was a mosque poster, but I don't necessarily think in Wokingham that's where our largest concern might be within population and ethnicity groups.
Okay, thank you. So, no, that's fine. So a couple of bits there. So if I do them in reverse order, if that's okay. So with regard to the ethnicity, so I do apologise, that is the level that the data is available at the moment. And I think we are seeing some differences in terms of the granularity of data that's being produced by the national systems in this phase of the programme compared to earlier phases. But having said that, if you're happy, I'll take that question back specifically and ask if we are, because the data sort of coming on all the time. It's more a sort of pace of availability of data rather than that it isn't necessarily being collected. So I would take that back as an action to check whether we can now get an ethnicity breakdown at a Wokingham level. And I will also flag the particular population group that you mentioned. So that was the third question. I think the second question was with regard to availability of appointments and uptake of the slots available. So the feedback that we've been getting from primary care networks suggests that the response from patients has been good, where clinics have been offered. They're seeing high levels of activity coming through those clinics. The programme has been set up to ensure that people should be able to access a vaccine within sort of ideally 20 minutes radius. For most of our patients, that should be much nearer if they're able to access their PCN clinics, but we recognise that those do run on particular dates. So there may be instances where patients are unable to attend those clinics for whatever reason, therefore have to look at the pharmacy option. As I mentioned, we have 3 pharmacy sites currently which should have availability for booking. So does that answer your question on that point? Yeah, okay, thank you. And the third point about the graph, sorry, could I just clarify, sorry, the first point, if I could just clarify the point on that.
But the comparison between Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire and Berkshire West, I mean, actually the differences are very, very small realistically. What I'm thinking is that graph would be much more powerful if it showed that there is only a third of people that are taken up, rather than showing us a graph which actually within the range doesn't really tell us very much.
Yeah, okay, comment noted, thank you. I'll feed that back.
Hal?
Right, yeah. So the take up of the COVID vaccine, I mean, have you found there's a reluctance amongst older people to take it up because it's not available at their local surgeries and they have to travel to some tent in a park and ride car park somewhere? And I mean, I'm just giving you some direct anecdotal evidence here, actually, verbatim from people that I've been told.
So we're not generally getting we're not getting high levels of feedback in terms of concerns about availability. Obviously, if we do receive that sort of feedback or comments from patients, we would look into that. So generally, no, I don't think that's the case. And I think the fact that our uptake is compares well, sort of on a national level, and is in line with national figures, does suggest that we're seeing a similar sort of level of acceptance to the vaccine to is being experienced elsewhere. But obviously, any specific concerns that are brought to our attention with regard to access would be followed up in the same way that any patient query would be.
Shahid, did you have a question?
It's slightly actually to what Phil mentioned regarding the ethnic minorities, or maybe the take-up is not very high. And what strategies are we putting in place to obviously reach those hard to reach communities? And are we succeeding in that? And and what else can perhaps can be done?
Yeah, I mean, this has been an ongoing theme. I think it's fair to say since the start of the vaccination programme, and also one that is replicated nationally. So it isn't a local issue. In terms of strategies, it's been a sort of multi-pronged approach, really, in terms of a combination of outreach, community workers linking in with particular groups. In earlier phases of the campaign, we had clinics, for example, running in mosques and in other community settings. Some of the work described in the rest of the presentation is targeted to particular postcode areas. So we have, for example, the ads van, I think it's called, driving around, and we're focusing in on the areas with the lowest uptake to send that into. So it's those sorts of activities. I don't think we've really cracked it. And I think, we're obviously mindful of what is going on elsewhere. We're sharing best practice with other areas, but it is a continuing challenge of the programme at the moment.
I think it was Rebecca, but Jackie's fine. Go, Jackie.
I'm really sort of congratulating, because all the surgeries are contacting people. I was contacted a week ago, and 2 days later I had done the jab. I've had about 8, but I think that's because I'm old. But they are working well, and I actually went into a pharmacy 2 weeks ago just for some cough medicine, and the chap behind the counter said, "Do you want a flu jab?" So I went, "What now?" So it is working. All these places are getting it out there, but you can't target different ethnic groups, of course.
Yeah, that's helpful feedback. Thank you. But yes, obviously challenges, as you say.
Rochelle?
Just curious about the counsellors and whether I'm just curious whether the counsellors have actually had both jabs or not. Yeah, I have also, but I'm just wondering. It would be just an interesting idea, anonymous, of course, but to find out how many of the counsellors have actually taken double jabs or not.
Any further questions, Caroline?
It's just a quick question. You said about feedback, and you have had no feedback about the distance. Has there been any other feedback about why people aren't having their jabs yet?
Yes, I wouldn't like to say we've had no feedback, because I'm sure there will have been queries coming in, but we haven't had sort of large volumes of concerns. Across Bob, undoubtedly there have been some concerns, and it's important that we do follow those up. With regard to uptake, I don't really have any local information to share. I mean, I think there's a little bit of vaccine fatigue perhaps creeping in, and obviously attitudes to COVID are sort of changing over time, as we're seeing the disease pattern is changing over time. Our winter campaigns work and our comms work is very much about still encouraging patients to have the vaccine, recognising that it is important. We know that rates are higher, so we're sort of continuing to get those messages across. But we will be doing more work to understand patient perception during this phase, and again, happy to share that in due course once it becomes available.
Thank you.
I guess Ingrid will correct me if I say anything wrong here, but I think we faced this 2 or 3 years ago with the initial COVID jab situation, where we were not getting, especially to the Pakistani community and the West African communities, and I think we went with a van that went into those communities. Do you think that will be necessary this time or not?
So yeah, so the Health on the Move van is the arrangement that you're describing, and that isn't operating in quite the same way, but we are still doing fixed outreach clinics, and we do have providers who are able to provide those clinics in venues where they are put forward as being a priority area. So I don't think we'll see the sort of mobile approach in quite the same way, but we are very much still focused on outreach work, and there is a whole programme of outreach clinics taking place.
Jackie again?
Yeah, I just believe that people are starting to think it's not as not as bad as it was. I've got a highly intelligent Russian daughter-in-law who had them at the first year, but she said to me only the other day, "Oh no, we don't need it." And I think that might be what's happening. It's gone. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know is the answer, but I think that is possible. And I think that is why it's important that we're continuing to give the messages that COVID is out there. We are, not to alarm people, but we are seeing rates up, and it is still important. And I think we just have to continue to reinforce those messages.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Helen. Look forward to working with you again, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to stay for the next item, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yes. Right. This is where I need to talk. Right. We're coming on to the Health Watch item.
Good evening.
Before we go into the Health Watch item, I need to read a statement written by Modality and ICB with regards to this presentation that Health Watch are going to present. Please accept our apologies for not attending in person. As is the nature of primary care, all our senior leadership team are running clinics and patient sessions this evening. Whilst we have given a very full and detailed response to the Health Watch report, we welcome the opportunity of highlighting here a series of key investments we have made to ensure that our 25,000 patients have improved access to a wide range of high-quality modern healthcare services. We would like to draw your attention to recent friends and family test results on patient satisfaction, which showed of the 2,148 respondents, 1,774 were extremely likely or likely to recommend our practice. In addition, our latest CQC inspection in 2021 awarded us a good overall rating. We are doing all we can to ensure our patients have easy and efficient access to the right healthcare at the right time. Recent NHSE data shows we provide around 130 appointments per 1,000 patients each week, nearly double the national recognised provision of 72 appointments per 1,000 per week. To meet this level of appointment provision, we have adopted innovative and modern ways of working, all done in consultation with our patients and based on their feedback. We have invested in new digital systems, including an online consultation service, which manages 250 requests a week, an app to book video appointments, and an innovative booking service for our 9,000 patients with long-term conditions, enabling them to choose and book convenient appointments, which also means we can then prioritise patients needing additional support. All this helps free up our telephone lines, and we have enhanced our telephone service so that people are not having to hold on to speak to our patient services team. We can call them back when they reach the front of the phone queue. We've switched back to face-to-face appointment system for those who prefer this to telephone consultations. We strive to do most appointments on the day, and for advanced appointments, we send text reminders nearer the date. It is worth pointing out that a large number of people making advance appointments do not attend. In the 9 months to September, there were 1,388 appointments not attended, which equates to 231 hours, 6 weeks of appointments that could have been offered to other patients. Our patients have access to a wide range of clinical healthcare professionals, including specially trained patient services team who carry out the initial patient triage. First contact physiotherapists, paramedics, physician associates, and clinical pharmacists. In addition, we work closely with our community pharmacy scheme, which provides further expert healthcare support for our patients. As with our colleagues across primary care, we are working in an incredibly challenging and demanding environment, and we are doing our utmost to ensure that our thousands of patients receive a safe, modern and efficient healthcare service. To do this, we regularly review our work and consider feedback from patients, and the finding from this Health Watch report will feed into that process. We hope your members will read this statement. Oh, I don't need to say that, do they? That's great. So that's from Modality, and I will hand over now to Alice. Welcome back, Alice. It's all yours.
Thank you. First of all, what I would like to do is present the Enter and View report, which I think all of you will have read. I'm only just going to skim through what we have done. And then after that, I'll update what Health Watch is planning to do in Wokingham. So in context, just to share that the Enter and View report was done because we had received feedbacks for 6 months since I started this post about Wokingham Medical Centre. In order for us to do an Enter and View, it is not something that we just go in and do an interview. We need to train staff to do this process. So it takes time. So that's what we did. To do this Enter and View, the reason why we did it is also because we had positive feedbacks as well as concerns like GP access, booking appointments, medication, and issues about quality of care. So what had happened was we used our statutory powers to undertake this visit in February. Our aim was to observe, which is what the Enter and View process is about, observe on the nature and quality of care being delivered to people, talk to the public using the surveys to gather feedback. That also includes carers, families, and anyone that uses the service. The methodology, if you look into the report, was we talked to the management team about what the feedback we received, Care Quality Commission, and also had a conversation with our advisory board about whether we should do it. And we did it in different ways. We did a survey, which was face-to-face and paper, and also gave hard copies to people who wanted hard copies. We did an online survey as well as did observational. Can I just say, whenever we do an Enter and View, normally we do get about 50 people who respond to this. For this Enter and View, we received 207 responses, which is one of our largest response when it comes to Enter and View. And out of that, about 134 people completed the online survey. And from there, 92% said they were patients, and 8% said they were patients, carers, or relatives of patients. So we did different ways. And our findings were there were issues with GP access, patient self-care, patient's knowledge and communication, and the environment. And based on that, we also asked gave recommendations to the service providers to look on these topics. But can I also say the findings of this interim view has also led us to doing the biggest survey that we are doing at the moment with all the GP accesses in Wokingham. So I would say that, there was a lot of positivity with all this. So, and you have read the response from the surgery as well as the integrated care board. We have always been transparent with all our reports. Our reports have got to be public whenever we do anything as Health Watch. So that is my interim view report. Any questions before I can go to the next one?
Firstly, Alice, we've been talking about Woking Medical Centre for a very long time, with many councillors giving many first-hand or second-hand feedbacks to you, saying that this is a really important topic that we want Health Watch to investigate. So a big thank you from this committee for all the work you and your team have done investigating as far as you could the feedback, positive and negative, from the respondents to your surveys. We really appreciate your report. Thank you. I'd like to open it up to questions. Phil?
Thank you, Alice, very much for the report and the presentation. I feel it would be unprofessional, but I'm going to say modalities statement, yada, yada, yada. I'm sorry, but we heard that there were improvements in what Woking Medical Centre were delivering for their patients. I was canvassing at the weekend and it was soul destroying, because 1 in 3 houses I visited, it seemed, had something to say about Woking Medical Centre. Now, of course, I understand with interim view, that's one thing. There are people that have got appointments, from what I can tell, and there are some people that don't get appointments which suit them. Is there a possible way that we can spread wider the access to your survey from what you're already doing, which wouldn't be too onerous on you, in order to get a view from those patients who seem to be disconnected from the practice and probably have given up even phoning them, and trying alternative solutions like going to A&E or waiting till out of hours are on when they're more likely to get an appointment or a visit?
I think this is something that Helen could answer more than it. I mean, to be honest, we encourage people to give us feedback. And in fact, just to share that since the interim view, the feedback has not stopped. It's still coming, saying that there are issues. And one of the things that we've done, just to share that the GP Access project, we conducted a focus group at Community Hub on couple of weeks ago, and there were a lot of people from Wokingham Medical Centre sharing their views about their experience at Wokingham Medical Centre. I'm hoping that the providers will look at our report, and we will be going back in February to have a look at whether they have upheld the recommendations. But just to share that we have not seen their PPG minutes on the website, which is what was one of the requirements of the contracts of a GP contract. So that's not. And we also have had feedback that we don't know how often the PPGs meet. So I mean, one of the things that Councillor Amata was at Woos Hill, and the Woos Hill chair themselves said they have reached out to Wokingham Medical Centre's PPG to help them, and they have not had any response. So I don't know what is really happening at Wokingham Medical Centre, the PPG group. But also the website has not been updated. So we have encouraged them to look at the website. What I will say is, the feedback has not been positive. So I don't know what else we can do, to be honest. But I'm happy for people to keep on giving us feedback. And we will still continue sharing it actually with the ICB primary care and at place, which we do meet the team regularly.
Can I say a few things? I've been trying to find out for 5 years how we make progress with these things. Obviously, this is an operator of a building that they didn't design, wasn't built for them. It was a building with extremely limited car parking and an extremely small space for a pharmacy and basically nowhere to queue. Last time I went there, I queued for my flu vaccine and got it very promptly. It was excellent service. But the time before, the pharmacy had 10 or 12 people working in it like you wouldn't believe. And I don't know how they work in that environment because it's a very small room. And they were pushing out that many prescriptions. It was unbelievable. But there was the whole of the pharmacy, patient side, was completely full of people waiting for scripts. The booking system was down, the electronic booking system was down, and there was a queue out on up the pavement. I really never have thought since that building was first built, so I used to be at Rectory Road, which then became that, I've never believed that building was suitable for 25,000 patients. In no way. Yeah. I was asking the CCG year after year after year, what are your predictions for the number of people in our borough and what is the expectation of the number of PCNs, of number of GP services? And they gave evasive answers, and the last answer I got was, we work with your planning department, but we weren't aware of loads of the houses that have been built in your area. Now, the current plan is to have an SDL around Tesco, which is hundreds more houses, which are all going to go to Woking Medical Centre, which is absolutely overloaded. And we all know it is. Healthwatch have been extremely helpful. Alice mentioned this. There was a meeting where I attended as chair of this committee, the Woos Hill PPG. And what I found at the Woos Hill PPG was a group of people, patient representatives, doctor representatives, clinicians, a group of people that really actively want to help. However, what are they saying? They are saying this building was designed for, I don't know, 10,000 patients, something like that, whatever it was. We went to 12,000 patients. Now we're at 15,000 patients, and we don't know what to do. Our building is totally insufficient for the number of people coming through our door. And this is the two key practices in Wokingham are working beyond their capacity. I can't see how anybody could disagree with that. So the question is, how do we get more GP practices? So there was a representative at that PPG meeting from the ICB, and the ICB representative said, well, you need to create a business case to have some kind of additional GP surgery in your area, in Woking Borough. So we talked about Arborfield and Barkham and Finchampstead, which is a black hole in terms of GP provision. I think previously it was said that Swallowfield or somewhere could take on all the patients from the hundreds of homes, thousands of homes that have been built there. I don't know whether this is real or not. It's just hearsay, effectively. But what we haven't got, and what the all those thousands of new houses haven't got is a GP practice. That's the reality. So with my chair of this committee hat on, I'm very pleased to see Helen here. And, you know, we have some pointers, we have some actions from another meeting outside of this committee where we start to build a way forward, I would say. Maybe I can go through those now, but this is really for the forwards programme and the action tracker. We have 3 actions really. One action is to get quarterly KPIs from the PCNs so that we have really solid evidence to base our requests to the ICB. The second thing is to understand what criteria the ICB will have in terms of how do we get increased GP provision. And the third item is there is a grouping of the PCNs which is chaired by Amit, I believe. And this organisation needs to be reinvigorated. It needs to feed into this committee. We need to be linked into this so that all of the GPs together can bring together a cohesive voice. And when, sorry, I forget the name of the lady who presented from Woodley. What was her name? Rupa
Joshi.
Yeah, Rupa presented the KPIs from Woodley, and their KPIs are, I would suggest, very similar to Woking Medical Centre, which is they're treating a huge portion per 1,000 patients on a weekly basis at the 2 practices in Woodley. And they're checking this because they've got an automated, computerized new telephony system. So they've got hard KPIs, and the numbers are unbelievable. You know, I think Mondays they had 1,253 calls on a Monday because patients are being pushed into, you know, from RBH or Frimley or whatever, into long-term plans where the provision of that is through the GP, as well as all the other things. And then, and the point I made at the PPG was the ONS stats for Wokingham are dramatic. When we went to the Bob HOSC, we talked about the increases in the number of people in Bucks and Oxfordshire, but in Wokingham it's dramatic. I think the over 75s have gone up by 43% in 10 years. The under 15s have gone up 15% in 10 years. It's an absolutely massive increase in the number of people that live here. And the number of GPs has not increased. And it is falling apart at the seams. And we need to keep this committee, whether I'm here or not, but I want everybody in this committee to keep on top of this topic, because this is all about everybody's day-to-day healthcare. And I'm not criticising modality. I'm not criticising Woos Hill. I'm not criticising Woodley. The whole area is absolutely swamped, and there aren't enough GPs. That's the top and bottom of it, as far as I see. So this is why I'm so pleased to see Helen. Perhaps Helen would like to respond.
Yeah. Okay. So quite a few things, obviously, in the comments and in the points that you've just made. So to go back to the Woking Medical Centre report, first of all, I mean, I wanted to thank, obviously, Alice for presenting it, and also for the broader work that she's doing with the ICB, or the Health Watch are doing with the ICB around GP access and different modes of access and patient perception of those. Obviously, the practice have outlined here some of the sort of mixed staffing model that they're employing and some of the different modes of access that they're now using. And I think that broader piece of work is really helpful to all of us, really, in understanding patients' perceptions of care and how we can work with patients to enable them to access care in these new ways and to understand the roles of these new professionals. With regard to feedback, I mean, as Alice, as you've said, you meet with us regularly, you share feedback that you receive from primary care and about all practices, and that's really helpful to have that dialogue. We also receive feedback from patients. Currently, we're not seeing a huge amount of feedback with respect to working in a medical centre. Clearly, that's slightly in contrast with what Alice is reporting, but I think it is important to say that. And similarly, on some of the measures that we look at, the National Patient Survey, Friends and Family, etc., they're not necessarily a huge outlier on a BOB level, but it's important, obviously, to understand local nuances and local experience. So we do take that on board. They are engaging with us around, you probably, or you may be aware that there was a National Access Recovery Plan for general practice, which required us to work with all of our primary care networks to put together an access improvement plan to be delivered over the next 12 months. And Wokingham Medical Centre and their PCN are engaging with us around that work, and that will be an ongoing dialogue over the coming year. And in our response to Health Watch's report, we also highlighted some actions that we were going to take around particular points, so we are taking those forward. With regard to information coming to the committee, we were going to suggest or ask really whether the committee would find it helpful to have a regular report on primary care covering off some of the key indicators that we look at. The data, the availability of data about primary care activity has massively improved over the last year or so, albeit that some of the published data, there's still sort of some caveats and nuances on. But I think we're at a point where we would be able to bring that information, similar sorts of things to we've done on an ad hoc basis previously, but if it were helpful, we could make that a regular report, and hopefully that would help in terms of seeing the sort of context as well, and some of the comparative data for the practices that have been mentioned. And then thirdly, with regard to the planning and the population numbers, and obviously in my previous role, I worked in primary care, so I'm aware this is a very long-standing discussion. And the CCG at the time, the response to the local plan and the assumptions that were made with regard to capacity being sufficient. I think when I last, I did dial into this committee a couple of meetings ago, and I think I said that we were engaged in an ongoing discussion with the planning department with regard to the review of the local plan, forthcoming consultations, and as part of that we'll be revisiting all of our assumptions with regard to each of the SDLs, the actual delivered housing, and then any new projections for housing. So that's a sort of monthly meeting that we're having. Ingrid Slade is now joining those meetings as well, which I think is helpful from a sort of population health and population growth perspective. And we will obviously be revising our assumptions with regard to what capacity we have or need in the future. And then just to pick up on your a final point you made, I think we also have to recognise that we are seeing changes in patient behaviour in terms of consultation rates. And I know you've had GPs come and talk to the committee about what it's like in general practice. It is quite tough at the moment. The demand is sky high. We're working with our practices and our primary care networks to understand the reasons behind that. But clearly that also needs to be fed into our thinking with regard to future population need. And we also work very closely with the Berkshire West Primary Care Alliance, which is the organisation that you mentioned that Amit chairs. I've met with them several times with regard to estates planning and practice planning, and we're very much in sort of ongoing joint dialogue with them and involving them in the discussions that we're having with the planning department, and we'll continue to do that. But I'm sure they would be happy to engage and provide further information if you wanted that too.
Thank you very much, Helen. I mean, obviously, with this, it's very important. This is PCN is the number one topic for this committee, right? And if you can organise additional reporting for additional regular updates from your end, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to cross-check that with what the PCNs are saying themselves. So we would definitely still ask Amit and his colleagues to present their side. And I think it would be, we had a presentation from the dentistry recently.
Yeah.
And there we had the ICB presenting plus a representative from the dentists. And the dentists gave us some very to the point feedback on certain points that we were raising, which really brought it down to, I would say, nuts and bolts issues that was extremely helpful. So I think it would be really useful if you were there or one of your representatives, and also Amit when he's presenting and when you're presenting, so that we can, cross-check things, if you like, or you guys can cross-check things.
That's fine. We'd be happy to work with you around that. That's not a problem. I was hoping our new head of primary care, Berkshire West, would join today, but he was unable to in the end. But maybe it's someone else rather than myself that you would want to speak to on an ongoing basis. But yeah, happy to coordinate that.
Shahid?
Chair. I mean, this issue of capacity has been there for a long time. It's not, in some, I live in Woodley and we've been talking about for years, right? There's a similar issue come up. But I'm just thinking that there's so many stakeholders here, right? Different stakeholders involved in this one. Population is increasing. Number of houses are being built more and more over the years as well. It seems a lot of meetings are being held, but the end action is what the residents want on the doorstep. From our perspective, is we want to have more access to GPs, and we don't have to wait for two weeks or even get an appointment. The problem is not going away. So where is the bottom? Just for me, it could be a naive question. Where does the buck stop, right? And why are we knocking those doors who are the key decision makers and can move the needle forward? Maybe I'm naive in the whole process, right? But we can probably enlighten ourselves.
Well, so the responsibility for ensuring that there's adequate provision of primary care services does sit with the Integrated Care Board. So you are sort of talking to the right people. Whether we're giving the responses, obviously we need to look at, but it is our responsibility to plan primary care provision. In terms of the key challenges at the moment, I think it is a combination of demand and workforce constraints, and that's the other thing that we do need to factor into all of our thinking about future need and future services. We have to be able to staff those services, and that is really challenging at the moment. The bringing in new roles into primary care has really helped with that, but it hasn't addressed the fact that we do have constraints, particularly around the GP workforce. So it is a sort of multifaceted conversation to ensure that capacity is in place, but that is what we should be trying to work with you to
do. I think, if I'm right, the PPG is a statutory thing. Is that correct?
It is a contractual requirement, yes.
Yeah, so we had the Woos Hill PPG has been trying to contact Woking Medical Centre PPG for years and never had a response. Separately to that, I'm also a partner governor of Royal Berks Hospital. One of the other governors there has been trying to contact Woking Medical Centre PPG for years and has not had an answer. If there is a statutory requirement for modality to have a PPG, I want to see them at this committee. I want them to present what their view of Woking Medical Centre is in front of these people, because we step on the doors of the people that moan. Yeah. So I want to see what the internal patient group at Woking Medical Centre says is their view of the situation.
Okay. So I mean, as you say, it is a contractual requirement for a practice to have a PPG. This is a matter that we are in dialogue with the practice about. So I will take back your comments and seek an update on that if that's okay. Whether a PPG would ordinarily present to a committee like this, I'm not sure, but it's a conversation that we can have.
Can I just come in? Helen, even to have evidence of them being there would be nice, but there's no paperwork or anything about the minutes or anything on their website. Their website is not up to date. There's so many things that, for a patient to engage, that is, it would be nice to have an updated website. I appreciate that they are all busy, but the thing is, though, a lot of people tend to go to the website and see the website and think, okay, equally, just to share that the GP Access project that we are doing at the moment, one of the things that, you talked about the new roles that are in the GP practices. Well, a lot of people are not aware of the new way of working. So I do think that an investment on comms might be appropriate to let the public know that there are new ways of working. The reason why when your receptionists or care navigators ask you questions, there's a reason why they're asking you the question, that they're being triaged, not trying to be nosy about your care kind of thing. They are just trying to do their job. So, because we've been asked questions like, what are the qualifications of this receptionist and all those kind of stuff. And equally, the public are feeling a bit pushed into the NHS app. There's no training and things that I accept that it's all coming. But, as 1st of November, they've been told that, on the NHS app, their details of, the care and everything will be on the NHS app, but they don't even know how to navigate the NHS app. There are so many different NHS apps. So I will turn around and say comms about these roles and also of the NHS app must be a priority if you want to help the workforce in the practices.
Yeah. Thank you, Alice. I mean, I would agree that it does form a sort of key element of our winter comms plan, and there is also a national campaign at the moment linked to the primary care access recovery plan, which I mentioned. So we're doing activity on the back of that, but the work you're doing in Health Watch is also really helpful in that regard. And similarly, the NHS app, I note those comments. Again, we've got a programme of work around supporting people, publicising how it's used. But yeah, happy to discuss that further with you if that would be helpful.
Just a comment, Chair. I mean, I just want to sort of relay from what we have to face as councillors when we knock the doors and listen to people, and it's important. I'm sure this has been relayed to you before as well, but again, it's worth reiterating that what they want to see is an outcome. Outcome is they want to have an appointment with GP when there's a need for it. If we say, look, there's a lot is being done behind the scenes and a lot of meetings are being held, that they don't really want to listen to that sort of argument. They say, look, there's a problem here. We want a solution. And as a taxpayer, we are contributing towards that. And we are elected officials. What are you doing to actually solve that particular problem? So as a councillor, I think we are a limited role. We've got a role, but we don't actually control the chair of everything. But we are one of the stakeholders in this. But I think the only thing we can do is that it's a very strong feeling out there. And there's also saying that, we are not being listened to and nothing's being done. And it's been going on for years and years now. So I'm just going to relay that frustration. So what it is required is an action, is an outcome, which is to have access to the GPs when they need it. So I just want to make a comment out there. You highlighted the challenge, you're absolutely right. And I've got 4 medics in the house. So I hear from them as well in terms of the challenges which the NHS is going through. But then nevertheless, we are representing the residents and they have got a huge issues from their side, which needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's noted. What I would say is our response to the primary care access recovery plan will be going to our board shortly, and that sets out some of the work that we're doing, albeit on a BOB level, but within that is work with individual practices where we know that there are concerns. That there aren't any sort of magic answers to some of the pressures, but equally, like you, we would aspire to patients having the best experience and absolutely being able to get access to the care that they need. So I think it's important that we set out how we're working towards that.
Any further questions? Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I know you don't have the answers that we all want right now, but we need to continue the dialogue. It's very important. The PCN topic is really, really crucial. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think we're on to the forward programme now. Do you want to take us through that?
So just going through the forward programme quickly, you'll note the items that we have down for January and March. Just to ask whether members wanted anything different or additional. You had the suggestions from the chair earlier that we had quarterly updates from primary care, and that we invite the PCN Foundation for an update in future, and have an update from the ICB about the criteria that they use to determine whether a GP practice, additional GP practice is necessary or not. So yes, just to check with members whether they want those items to proceed and whether you had any other items that you wish to add or remove from the forward programme.
Just an observation here. In 31st of Jan 2024 and also 19th of March. I think earlier discussion we had, Matt, was we don't need probably KPIs quarterly. So probably March one can disappear, or maybe January one can disappear, or some of them can change out, because as we discussed, perhaps this can be reflected on that.
Anything else on the forward programme?
I might say I disagree with regards to the KPIs for ASC. I think that's an ongoing trend that we need to keep in mind of. But I'm happy to discuss that with you. My question is, and it's something that's been on there, and I've mentioned it before. Maternal mental health is something that we've been waiting for. I don't want to squeeze it in, because actually the problem is that we have a window with the subject patients that we need to make sure that we can address, and if we can get that on the agenda, please, as a priority. Thanks, Madeleine.
Yes, sorry, I should have made that clear on the forward programme, that at the last meeting you asked that for the first item of the next municipal year. So if that's still what's wanted by the committee, then we'll have that on the first meeting.
Caroline?
I have mentioned this before, but I'm not a committee member. Vaping and primary school children and the incidence of that.
I will look into that one and feed back to whether that be possible and when.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, then sorry, Jack.
Currently when it's scheduled, but if there's any changes, I will let members know.
And just to clarify what I said, I think I agree with Phil in terms of the KPIs. Maybe I was thinking of at the time the vision, which we talked about every 6 months. Yeah, so that's right. So yes, I think the KPIs keep.
Just to clarify, you are correct. They don't appear in every meeting. They come when they're available. I confess, when I did the forward programme, I wasn't quite sure of their scheduling.
Okay, thank you, Alice, very much. And
Chair, can I just say, so sorry, Chair, to interrupt. Would you like us to come and present the findings of the new way of working sometime in the new year?
Yeah, work with
March.
work with Madeline and Ingrid or whoever on the scheduling of that, and we'll get you in there. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you again, Helen. And the meeting's closed.
you.